Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vet Chats, where we help veterans share their amazing stories and help make the veteran community a better place. I hope you stay tuned to hear how this next generation is continuing their service. Also, Vet Chats is now available on Reese Across America Radio. We're played Mondays at 9 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. They have a ton of great veteran content. Definitely check them out at their website, iHeartRadio, or the Odyssey app. And also, the Veteran Workbook. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, it's available on Amazon. It's only $9.99, so be sure. This is the perfect gift for that veteran in your life. Christmas is coming up. This will be at your house in 2 days, so definitely check it out. And also, I know we got a lot of new people here, so we have a Facebook group, and that's where, that sense of community comes to play. You can reach out there. You can post anonymously. You can message me. I'll post for you. Don't be afraid to reach out there. And we have a lot of chats such as sobriety and recovery chat, benefits chat. You could plug your podcast or whatever you're doing. If you stream on Twitch, whatever you want, we have a chat where you can plug that and get connected with other veterans, because that's so important. So many of us like to isolate. So be sure to check out our Facebook group. All these links are in my bio. Hello everyone. I have an incredible guest for you tonight. I actually was ice skating with this guest yesterday. His name is Danny Mayberry. Him and his wife are just two of the loveliest people I've had the pleasure of meeting, and I got to meet them in person out in Vegas at the Military Influencer Conference. And he is the host of 1 Mile, 1 Veteran, which is an incredible podcast. Each episode is about the length it will take you to walk a mile, which is about 30 minutes. So it's a great motivator to get out and walk around, just doing your walks. I know, what was that trend? The hot girl walk, yeah. So just getting out there, it's so important, and it's a lot of great conversations. I know I'm a weekly listener, so I know you guys would love it too. So I see that he's requesting to join, so let's get Danny on here, and we're gonna get deep, guys. Get ready. All right, I accepted the request. Sometimes it makes me do it. There we go.
All right.
Hey, Danny.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. I'm glad. How's the audio? Because everything just switched.
It's good. Wait, that last part sounded like it came out a little bit.
No worries. Everything just switched on me, so I am getting rid of the microphone and the headphones and just here with you.
There we go. And you're coming live from a hotel room, correct?
Yes, we have been on the road, no place to call home, since I think February. So people's couches, guest bedrooms, hotels, Airbnbs are a great way to go. And that's how we've been doing for the last 10 months.
Wow, the nomad lifestyle. And why'd you decide to do that?
Well, we sold our home to produce 1 Mile, 1 Veteran for about 2 years consistently as our full-time thing. So we quit our job, sold our home, and decided to do this for at least 2 years to grow the audience, grow the community as much as possible, spread the word that there is a community out there that cares about you. And, life is incredibly simple, but that does not mean that it's easy. But if we can come together as a community, then we can make life a lot easier for us, especially in times of hardships. And so we sold our home in Hawaii in order to make the money last as long as possible. We decided to live in places on the road for about $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about dedicated. That is a huge risk. Especially, times are unpredictable. They've always been unpredictable, but especially as of the past 2 years. And I just think that's awesome. Oh, and like someone said, very adventurous and cool, because you're never going to know if you can do something unless you fully commit to it, fully give your whole self to it. And I love how Leanne's been right there with you, like that.
She absolutely is. And it doesn't mean that it's it's been the easiest thing for us, but having her support has been so incredible through this journey. I mean, as a veteran of 11 and a half years with 3 combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan, the places that I've found myself in with her support this past year have been absolutely amazing. Could not imagine doing it with anybody better than her. And we just have so much fun together.
Yes. Oh, you guys are just awesome. I love your dynamic. And if in case anyone, you need a new YouTube channel to binge on, I would suggest This is Mayberry, right?
This is Mayberry because every place you go should feel like Mayberry. It should feel like home.
Ah, I love that. I love that. And they have the coolest vlog videos. His wife Leanne, she was a producer, so she's really trained in that realm, and just the storytelling's incredible through video and your takes. I love it. And you guys are just so adventurous, and you do things different. Like you'll each tackle a side of a trip, so then you can go together and really get that full experience.
Exactly.
I
Makes
love
it
that.
a little easier.
Yes, yeah. So I'm worried this chat it's not going to be long enough because we have so much to get into.
Oh,
And Danny, I know you're not much of a small talker, so let's get into it.
yeah, no. When you said we're gonna get deep, that's just kind of what I do.
You do. You're right away. I love it.
I'm sure. I'm sure Nick found out last night just how intense I can be.
Yes. No, he loved it. He was like, Danny, he's an intellectual. He's sometimes yes. He loved it. So if you went to join the Navy, where do you think you would be right now?
Oh man, if I hadn't joined the Navy, I probably would have went to some liberal arts school, studied acting and art, and would be in a very similar type of career path um, that I'm doing right now. But it just would have happened at a younger age, and I wouldn't have had the incredible journey that I've had to get here.
Okay. Oh, acting. I like that. What kind of drew you, growing up to want to act the theater?
So I moved around a lot. I was raised by a single mother of 3. She had an undiagnosed mental health condition. She had PTSD, but was being treated for bipolar, which are 2 completely different treatment plans. And she was treated with bipolar for about 20 years before actually addressing the core of her trauma about 10 years ago. And what that meant was that holding a job for her was hard. Um, Living in a community was very difficult for us. I went to about 18 different schools, 5 different high schools. And during my sophomore, junior year, I went to go live with my father. And it was the first time that I ever engaged in after school activities. There was a girl from church. She asked me to come be a part of the high school musical. She said, we have about 60 girls and 5 guys, and we need more guys. And I was like, I'm there. Sounds like an
Wait,
environment
60
for me.
girls? I'm in.
and I loved it. Like I loved acting and memorizing lines and just playing different roles and characters. And it really like brought me out of my shell. And probably did about 3 or 4 plays that year. Competed in some monologue competitions. Had scholarships to schools. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So were you more of an outgoing kid, or monologues are intense and very intimidating. Did you find your confidence before then, or did you kind of find it on the stage?
So I found it when I went to go live with my mom and dad the first time. My stepmom and dad the first time, and I was about 11, 12 years old. I was extremely. I had been through a lot at that point, a lot of abuses and childhood traumas and stuff like that, and growing up food insecurity and never having any real stability, and so I didn't have a lot of confidence when I went to go move into their house. I mumbled a lot. I never made eye contact, and so my stepmother, um, in an effort to build confidence, she made me look her in the eye every time I spoke with her and made me articulate every single word for the entire year that I lived there. And so I spoke like this for an entire year, and I had to look people in the eyes. And, I did have that outgoing personality because I was the youngest, always trying to get attention. But, she really helped develop kind of the more suitable public, outgoing, energetic persona that you see now.
Yes. Wow. And it's so amazing how it just takes maybe one person to really give you that undivided attention and make you believe that your voice matters and you
Yeah,
need to speak clearly because what you're saying matters. Wow.
exactly.
That is huge. And
Yeah.
so after high school you didn't end up this theater route. You ended up the Navy route. How did that come about?
So in the eighth grade, my brother had joined the Navy. He was part of the aviation crew that commissioned the ship that you were stationed on board for your deployment to Truman. And I got
Yeah.
to go, right. And I got to go on a Tiger cruise when I was 13 years old with him for about a week or two. And at the end of the Tiger cruise, he made me promise him that I would join the Navy when I graduated high school. And I kept my promise. And 7 days after graduating high school, I was in boot camp.
I find that amazing because you're one of the few people who's actually been on a ship and said, "Yeah, I could live here."
It was just, I don't know, like despite the hardships that I've gone through, like I've always just kind of seen things as a step towards the next thing that I'm supposed to do. So I don't look at things as like bad experiences. They're just experiences, and they build who we are, and it's our attitude towards them that really shape who we become.
Absolutely. And I think you moving around so much, you also kind of look at as experiences as they're not permanent. You know, this is just temporary because your whole life was kind of temporary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's a really good perspective to put on it.
Yes. So as you're going through these experiences, you end up going the Navy. What job was kind of appealing to you then?
So I joined to be an aircrew rescue swimmer. And when I was down in the school, down in Pensacola, Florida, some things had happened with my family, and I decided my heart really wasn't into the rescue swimming thing. It was a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be, and my family was having difficulties back home, which was Norfolk at the time. And so I decided I'll DOR for right now. I'll delay getting a rate, and I'll go home and see if I can be of assistance. And that was just a really poor decision on my part. But I was 18 years old, making decisions for the first time by myself, no outside influences, and I decided I wanted to, be a codependent son and brother, and see how I could aid in some of the family drama that was going on. So I went undesignated and got on board an LPD that was decommissioning. And if you know anything about an LPD as an undesignated airman, there's one flight deck, and when you're in the shipyards, there's really not a lot to do. And so I had a lot of idle time, a lot of time to drink and get in trouble, and still hang out with friends that I had from high school, and hang out with my brother who was just recently out of the Navy, and all of his friends. And I really started to go down an unhealthy pattern for a good period of time. And after one long evening, and this was a long weekend of partying, came back to the ship. I had watched that night, and this was before Yellow Jackets. I don't know if you've ever heard of Yellow Jackets. They were an amphetamine type of supplement that you could get at the GNC on base. Um,
Okay.
yep, and
I could
so
yes, I could
yeah,
picture something like it.
they were energy pills. But like they were the precursor to like what you would put in meth a few years later. So they quickly became unsuitable. But I was up for about 3 days, and had a psychological break. And um, while I was on watch with my M14, I almost did something permanent. But an act of God stepped in, and I managed to secure the weapon and go talk to a second class that he was one of the kindest guys. He was an ABF2. I remember his first name, Camille. Um, and he heard me out, and he helped me get help. And when I was sitting in the psych eval, the doctor asked me, what do I want? Do I want to get out of the Navy, or what are my goals here? And I told him that my goals were to be a better sailor, be a better person, and figure out how to live life.
Hmm.
And so the Navy helped me.
That, wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's a great thing that you were able to receive help with
yeah,
that, and that it was understanding and it wasn't one of those situations where it's like, all right, you're done here, we're kicking you out, because it could have gone that way as
yep,
well. But I think when you say an act of God, it
yeah,
helped you to where you're meant to be.
yeah,
So you ended up looking at different careers, and
yeah.
you ended up corpsman.
Yes. So that was kind of one of the things that they helped me with. They were like, "Hey, we're going to help you decide on a rate, get a job." And on board the ship, there happened to be one staff sergeant from the Marine Corps. He was the embark officer, and he kind of took me under his wing. I got put on a Tiger team for his. My job was to fix up the troop spaces and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed working with the Marines, exercising with them. And then when I went down to medical, uh, as I was looking to strike, they kind of outlined what they did, and I was like, "This seems like one of the coolest jobs ever." So sign me up.
Yes, yeah, perfect match. And so, did you know anything about the Marines at the time?
Not really. I mean, I knew that they exercised a lot. I didn't really pay attention to what was going on in the world. I knew a war was starting in Iraq or Afghanistan. This was 2004, so I went to Corps school, chose my saw that Hawaii was an option, requested to go to Hawaii, got my first choice on my dream sheet, and went through the field med training school, ended up in Hawaii, and 30 days after landing, I was in Afghanistan.
Wow. So, I mean, you get dream orders, right? I mean, that's Hawaii's number one on
Yeah,
everyone's dream sheet, and it turned into Afghanistan.
it was great though. Like when I showed up to Hawaii, because I had been in the Navy for about 20 months at that time. There was three battalions out in Hawaii at the time, first, second, and third battalion of Third Marines, and they had just started their rotations to Iraq and Afghanistan. And when the battalion that I got assigned to had about 8 months until their deployment, and they had chosen two other corpsmen to go to the Afghanistan deployment, that did not want to go. They wanted to get out of the Navy. And so I went up to the chief and I was like, "Hey, chief, I've been in the Navy for 2 years. I just got here. I don't have ties. My sea bags are packed. I want to go on deployment. If there's a way to make it happen, I'll take one of those seats." And they sent me on pre-deployment leave and let me go. I met my team kind of in country.
That's very smart though. I mean, you're right. Why get comfortable somewhere when you could knock out this deployment and hit the ground running? So when you got there, I feel like Marines really appreciate their doc. But maybe not right away. Maybe it's like when you go there, you're in someone else's turf. How was that interaction, the first interaction?
It's definitely an earned thing. Like I said, I didn't have much time for the guys to get to know me before. I was a smoker. I ate bad food. I PT'd, but didn't take it too seriously. And so my first nickname with them, it was not Doc, it was Nurse Nasty. Um, because I would eat nasty foods and
I could never picture you having that nickname.
yeah, but I embraced it. I made that my we would have Halo tournaments, and that was my Halo character's name. I was just like, I'm just gonna roll with it. Like, you can call me what you want. Let's go. And by the end of the deployment, I had finally earned Doc after a few firefights and a few training sessions. I eventually earned the title that a lot of us shoot for.
Because with Corman, I mean, you're right out there alongside with them, right?
Yeah, on the deployment, I sent home some photos to my father, and this was before like internet was really integrated with deployments, and so communication was sparse. So I checked in on September 30th. I was in country on November 6th. Sent home some photos of me with in my fatigues and gear to my dad, and finally got to talk to him on Christmas. And his question was, "Daniel, where are you?"
Oh no.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Where are you?" I was like, I've got this photo of you carrying these weapons in the mountains. What's going on?" And I was like, "Well, I'm with the Marines in Afghanistan." And he was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I thought you joined the Navy. I was like, I did join the Navy, but the Navy gets attached to Marines. And he goes, well, are you on a base, a hospital, a ship? I was like, no, we're hiking around the mountains, meeting people that, you know, thought the Russians were still invading, and sitting down, drinking chai, and just having a time out here. At least that's what it was for me. I was 20 years old. I was impervious. I had no real scope on what was going on, you know, but we were doing a lot of humanitarian missions in the mountains.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like your mission was, you're really around people and integrated with the locals. How was that for you?
It was it was a lot of fun. There was an article written when we were doing some of the humanitarian missions, uh, where the reporter for some reason interviewed 20-year-old Danny, uh, as we were passing out pencils and medical supplies. And the whole goal was hearts and minds. And during all three of my deployments, you know, we do interact very closely with the local population, because it's how you gain information, it's how you build rapport, it's how you gain support
Hmm.
in the country. And one of the things that I just always learned, and I heard somebody put it really interestingly the other week when I was visiting with him. He goes, one of the things he realized that he was fighting against were boys from West Virginia just trying to protect their home. Um, like that's how he viewed the populations of Iraq and Afghanistan. Most of the people over there are just people trying to live their lives and provide for their
Hmm.
family. Um, and that was my experience, and that's why I've always done what I did, was not to care for the policies, but to care for the people.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And really once you're opening yourself up to that and having to have those conversation, it really puts humanity at the forefront.
Absolutely.
Yes. So you came back, and did you want to get out, or was there a reason why it
Uh,
was time?
so when I came back from that tour, 7 months later, I was sent to be part of a military transition team to Iraq. So I was back in country 7 months after returning, and coming back from that deployment, things were different mentally. I started exhibiting the effects of PTSD on a very real level, and the girl that I was dating eventually became my wife, and encouraged me to stay in because um, she reminded me of a promise that I made. I was like, if I pick up E5 before my first deployment or before my first term, I'll re-enlist. And if I pick up the next rank, I'll stay in, and so on and so forth. And eventually, my job transitioned into training, and I trained a lot of junior guys. And I fell in love with the Navy. Like I fell in love with serving and teaching and preparing people for the next thing. Um, so I did everything that I could to make sure that I was a fit and healthy sailor for my Marines. And so I had a goal of making it 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I could see you just thriving in that role. I mean, like you've mentioned, you're a people person. You thrive with that, and something is training. It's so rewarding because you see people come in at one level, and then you get to push them to the next.
yeah.
So is that something that you could have stayed in that role, or you eventually had to get out of it?
So I had to get out. It was about 4 or 5 more years until I had my third combat tour back to Afghanistan. And when I came back from that, I started having flashbacks and realized I was drinking way too much.
Mm.
And so I knew the effects of alcoholism, and I just did not want to start experiencing them. So I once again turned to the Navy and I asked for help. And I answered some of the questions very honestly. And that eventually led to the recommendation that I look for a career outside the Navy. And that was a really, really tough pill to swallow. Um, but, you know, I tell people, like, if I would have known what would have happened, I might not have asked for help. If I would have known the outcome of asking for help, I would do it. I would do it all again.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I would not trade this life for the one that could have been.
Right. And what are some of the things that helped you feel comfortable asking for help?
Um, like I had mentioned earlier, growing up around somebody that struggled with mental health their entire life, it was something that was just commonly talked about in my household. And, I've experienced near suicide in my household, in my personal life, with friends, and coworkers and junior Marines. Um, there is no there's no coming back from that permanent decision. And if you're ever heading down towards that road, uh, for me, it's my duty to ask for help, regardless of how hard it's going to be.
Hmm. Yes. And also was kind of having that experience in the corpsman role, in the hospital role, give you like had you seen other people reach out for help and knew that it could get better?
Um, that part, there were a few people that did reach out and ask for help when I was filling the IDC role, and we managed to get really good success for them, especially in theater, to get them back to the fight. For me, being a corpsman, it just made me trust the doctors, trust people other than my own thinking to kind of make decisions for me. And honestly, like when you're in that kind of headspace where, you've made bad decisions, impulsive decisions, decisions that led to negative consequences, it's really important to trust professionals in that space. And so being a corpsman, knowing the training that people went through, made that easier for me to just trust when they said, "Hey, I think you should go to a 30-day inpatient treatment because your drinking and your PTSD is that bad." I just had to trust their judgment over my own.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you're able to get help, and then was it not enough, or was it, you knew it was time to move on from the Navy, but what's next? Like where do you go from corpsman after that?
So when they told me I needed to start thinking of a different career path, and God was a big portion of the recovery process and the healing process, developing a spiritual life, I had the idea of potentially being a pastor. Um, it was kind of a path that I was a little bit familiar with from the time that I lived with my dad. So I called up my dad. I was like, "Hey, this is what's going on in my career. Um, this is what I'm thinking I should pursue. What do you think?" And he said, "Danny, he said, Daniel, let me call you back tomorrow. Let me pray about it and call you back tomorrow." So I said, "Okay." Called him back the next day, and he said, "I've been praying on it, and I really think you should go be an actor." And I just laughed. I was like, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." Here I am, 27 years old. I'm married. I have a house. I'm E6 up for E7 in the Navy, looking at a 30-year career. I'm doing really well in the medical side of the house. What are you talking about? And he said, "I think you should really follow something that you're absolutely passionate about." And because one of the things that I always said about medicine was I fell into it. Like it was never a plan for me to do. It was just something that I was
Right.
good at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he said, so he encouraged me to go do something I was passionate about. And again, trusting somebody smarter than myself. He has an amazing life. I was just like, all right, I'm going to trust this man's judgment because my thinking ended me up in rehab.
I mean, it makes sense why you're doing what you're doing now, because you just find that passion and you go after it.
Mhm.
And so with the acting, did you end up going to school for that, or what was the next step? And also, you mentioned you were making that E6 paycheck. I mean, you don't make that as a starting actor. And also, what was your wife Leanne thinking about this?
So I hadn't known her at the time, thankfully. I was married to an atheist at the time, and when I told her what was going on, because nobody recommended that I go to treatment other than the doctors, when I finally said something. Her response when I asked her what she thought when I was in rehab was, "I knew you would take care of whatever it is that you need to take care of. That's just the person you are." And so I was like, "Okay." And when I told her what the future plans entailed, she decided to ask for a divorce. She said, this isn't the marriage that I signed up for. The
Mm-hmm.
path that you're going down is just not the one that I agreed to. And being okay with that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
But I stuck with it, you know? I was like, all right, well, sobriety, spiritual life, doing the next right thing. I had to let her go. I had to kind of end those things. And so as far as the acting went, I did what I knew to do. I got a mentor, so a fellow actor in the local community, and I asked him, what do I do? He's like, oh, start auditioning for plays, get yourself an agent, start acting, just start doing it. And that's what I started doing. I started auditioning for local plays. I got an agent. I started doing commercial work. I got an acting coach out in Hawaii. And he recommended that so once I got my acting coach, I was like, what do I do? I want to do this professionally. I have, 12 months until I need to leave the Navy and really figure out like where the income's going to come from. And so he recommended a school in New York. I went and I visited like 7 different schools on the East Coast, all for acting. Got accepted to 2 of them. And that's what I was going to go do until I met Leanne a year later. And it was, again, like one of those things of, what do I do now? I asked people when I had met Leanne, after our first date, I sat down and I was like, I'm moving to New York in 11 months, but I'm open to what God has kind of planned, but this is what I'm doing. And so I'm not going to date somebody and fall in love and go through the emotionalness unless it's going to head towards marriage. So like, if you're down for that, I'll date you and we'll just kind of see what God does. And she said yes. And 5 months later we were engaged. And I had to figure out the next step. Was to stay in Hawaii. And like you said, I told her, I was like, I'm about to be a broke college kid living with roommates. Like, that's what I'm going to do because I need to get a 4-year degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a crazy conversation to have after your first date. But
Yep.
but how great is that you did that and were just upfront and honest, and it led to such a way to take the relationship serious. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, oh, I love that.
I recommend anybody do it. Like, don't just date, like, unless you're looking to just have fun and be stressed. But like,
And stressed, yeah.
but like, if you're looking for a life partner, just say it up front.
Yeah, why not? And if it scares someone away, that's not the right person.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's just who I am though. Like, I always tell people, I was like, you'll know if I don't like you because I will tell you.
Right. And I could see that. I mean, you don't have time. You're very on a mission. And also what I've learned from talking to you is that you're someone that really knows yourself in and out. And how did you get to that spot? I just want to take some notes here for myself.
A lot of listening, a lot of taking what people say about you and reflecting on it in a positive way. And then just being okay with who you are. We all have our flaws, and like, it's completely okay to have flaws, because like we're not all going to be strong at everything. And so, I had learned once, humility is accepting all of who you are.
Yes. Yeah. And radically accepting that. I'm working on that. I love that. So after that, like the transition was still hard, right? I bet falling in love really makes it easier because it just makes everything better. But I'm sure there was some difficult times. So what really got you through, to that next spot in life, through transitioning out of the military, taking off the uniform?
So for me, because I left the military in a way that I didn't want to leave, because I didn't want to leave the military at the time, I threw away all my uniforms, separated myself completely from the military and veteran community. I had a few mentors in the church that would try to introduce me to veterans in the community, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it hurt too bad to have a career that I had planned for taken away in a way,
Mm-hmm.
or that I had to give up, and I really wasn't wanting to give it up. Um, so in building a civilian support network, like transparency was really, really key, of just letting people know, like, I don't drink, this is why I don't drink, I do have PTSD, this is what it means in my life. There's going to be days that are just hard. um,
Mm-hmm.
I have depression and suicidal thoughts, and they will come up, and yes, I have people that I talk to about them. um, and even though I did have that like level of transparency with a lot of people in my community, still experiencing those hard days are still really hard. And
Mm-hmm.
for such a long time, I believed mental illness to only be in our head, if that makes sense. Like, it's something that we're making up and we're doing to ourselves. um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was until 2020, after about 10 years of recovery and getting my master's and having a great marriage and being, a contributing member of my community. I had my third near suicide attempt on a whim, just one Friday night. The planning and practicing had started. The preparations for the next time I was able to be alone and make sure that my wife wasn't going to find me. Um, those thoughts just took over. Um, and so making it through that, and the way that I made it through that was I was used to already being transparent with my community. I did all the things that I knew to do to try to get it out of my head. I, put on some comedy. I exercised. I ate well. I went to bed. I served at the church. But the final thing that I had to do was I had to tell somebody what was going on in my head, the exact thoughts that were happening, um, for them to finally just leave. But it was at that moment that I realized, like, mental health isn't something that I can just muscle through. It's something that I really have to uh, give honor to. And, I mean, 10 years after getting out of the Navy almost, I finally started to pace myself and realize, like, I don't need to do everything. I don't need to carry the weight of everything all the time, like we kind of are trained to do in the military. It's like, just go, 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 go. There's one more day. Um, you know, I just, yeah, I had realized, like, it's okay not to finish the work at the end of the day and to put it off for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
a lot of learning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so from that point, from the point of your suicide attempt, in the like how did that really shift your thinking around mental health? And also, maybe during this you've thought of things like I need to implement this or I need to stick with certain things to make sure I don't get to that point again.
Yeah, so during that time, like, the thing that really shifted was making sure I was finishing my master's, and we had a community project. And Ronan, by, yeah, definitely facts, man. Consider slowing down. Um, slow down enough to figure out how I could give back. And part of my master's program was to come up with a community project that could give back to a community I cared about. And that's where kind of 1 Mile, One Veteran was birthed. It wasn't a podcast at the time. I think it was just going to be like a hiking group with, like, come be a part of our hiking group. But I also knew sometimes how hard it was just to get off the couch, uh,
Mhm.
especially when dealing with depression. How hard it is to just get out the door when dealing with PTSD and you live in a city like I did. Um, like, those are just hard things to do. So we eventually came up with the 1 mile aspect of just go walk a mile. Like, know that walking a mile is one of the healthiest things that you can do with your life, and it's such a low commitment, but it's so life changing. And so that was kind of what we started working on doing. Of like, okay, we want to implement this thing. COVID, put us all on lockdown, so it's not like we can go out and do this right now. We have the time now to plan. And so Leanne and I, we sat down and we planned out what 1 Mile, One Veteran was going to be. Um, and then as the pandemic was ending, or the restrictions were ending and people were starting to go out again, uh, at the end of 2021, a close friend, mentor, and pastor died suddenly in an accident. And then 6 months later, I came up with shingles in my ear, which almost left me paralyzed and deaf in one ear. So paralyzed in my face and deaf in one ear. And the doctor said it was due to stress. And so I had to reduce, again, learning how to pace myself, I had to reduce the amount of stress in my life. And the only stressors that I had was my job or what we were planning for 1 Mile, One Veteran. And at that time, it was just like, well, we can't save up the money from our jobs. We can't take the next 2 years to do this. Our friend just died getting hit by a bicycle while he was out on an afternoon run. I almost ended up paralyzed. Like, we got to do this now.
Yeah.
And so we decided to sell our home and say, we're doing this now. And if we can only do it for 2 years, at least we were obedient and we did the thing that we felt like we needed to do at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're impacted by something like that happens, a death close to you, you realize how short life is, and that you're gonna kick the can down the road forever unless you just go for it.
Yep.
And that it's just so inspiring that you guys are doing that. And with the podcast, you've already touched so many people, and you have such incredible guests. What are you guys planning for 2024?
So for 2024, we are hopefully launching a second segment. We don't know if it'll be weekly, but it'll be on our YouTube and LinkedIn and video platforms where we're talking to subject matter experts to put the tools out there. The podcast will remain the podcast where we interview veterans and the supporters about their stories and their journeys, editing them down to 20 to 24 minutes, the average time it takes to walk a mile. Get out there, walk that mile, listen to the episode, and then call a friend. And we're also going to be pushing our virtual walking group that's available on Strava. So if you're looking for any of this stuff, go to our website, onemileoneveteran.com, and you can find all of this stuff. And we're just kind of seeing where the road is going to lead us. We had an idea to visit all 50 states. We did 9 in 3 weeks this past fall, and it was just too much for me. By the end of Vegas, I was wiped. I was like, this is not a sustainable pace for me. I don't know other people do it. But financially, if we can, we will eventually make it to all 50 states because we also want to have in-person walking groups associated with 1 Mile, One Veteran. Because, like, one of the beautiful things about mental health is there are free ways to work through mental health, and healthy conversations are some of those the freest ways. Getting out there and taking a daily walk, having a daily routine. When I was just going to medical and just doing that for the 2 years during the pandemic, when I wasn't able to be a part of a community, I got up to about 18 pills a day, and the depression was just worse. Now that we are back active and part of a community, I am now down to an occasional antihistamine for my seasonal allergies. And I feel great, and I know that that's not the same thing with everyone, but, I'm also very closely tied in with my healthcare community to say, hey, this is what's going on. So we monitor and we have that safety. And I think that that's like one of the beautiful things that having a community, a healthy community, really does, is it helps us learn how to take those risks, reduce those anxieties and do it in a healthy and sustainable way instead of just, I considered myself a pill junkie a year ago, 2 years ago. And it was just miserable.
Hmm. That's incredible. I mean, congratulations on that, and um, finding different ways and being consistent with that, and just dedicating your time to this. One question I had, where was it? And it was like going to be the last question, but it was something like you're centering your life on this mission
Mhm.
of 1 mile, one veteran. How is that really where was it? How has it where are you at now? Like, what's your view on life currently?
My view on life currently, um, I mean, life is always amazing. Like that's always been my view. That's one of the reasons I get really frustrated that I have depression, because I'm like, I don't like thinking about life any differently. And I mean, today was a perfect example. Even though that I have this view on life that it is absolutely amazing and worth living. Like earlier today, I was in a fight with Leanne, um, because I have limited capacity to be able to do stuff, and that still frustrates me. Um, but that does not take away from just how awesome and amazing life is. You know,
Hmm.
have to remind myself of that. And so after that fight, Leanne did the best she could to encourage me to get up and go for a walk, and eventually I did, and turned my afternoon around.
Yes, yeah. I find myself reminding myself of that too. Just focus on the good, focus on what you are able to do and what you already have. That's something that's been keeping me going lately, because it's so easy to just pick apart all those little things that are not going well.
Yeah.
But Danny, we are coming up on time. I knew this was going to be too short, but I want to make sure. And we already had a question. People want to know where to find you. Where's your Patreon? Everything.
So everything can be found on onemileoneveteran.com. You can get there through our Instagram page, 1 mile, one veteran, the number 1 mile, number one veteran. Go check it out. We are always trying to update and grow. It is just me and Leanne doing it, so our primary focus is making sure that we're having our weekly episodes out there and ready to go. Um, so check back to the website regularly, and you'll find the most updates up there.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thank you so much. You're my last interview. This is the last vet chat of the year. So I am just so honored to leave 2023 on this high of a note. So I appreciate you being here. And I want to thank everyone who joined the live, stop by, say hi. We read all your comments and appreciate them. I know we didn't get a chance. I always say questions are welcome, and I need to stop saying that because I want all the questions. Myself. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, or if you're catching the replay or catching this on the radio, I hope you enjoyed it. And Danny, I hope you have a great week. And tell Leanne I said hi.
Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see the next Fat Chats in the new year.
Yes, 2024. All right. Bye, Danny.
Bye.